awesome artists! Today we're going to be making something called paper pottery. I learned about this lesson from one of my favorite art teachers, Coach T. And she presented this lesson to a bunch of other art educators through the Art of Education University and taught us all how we can make pottery or something kind of three-dimensional from strips of paper. So I'll show you how we're going to get started in a second, but first we are of course going to do our mantra. So get your brain ready, your body ready, your art muscles ready, and let's do it together. Here we go. My mantra: I am positive, I am creative, I am mindful, I am amazing, I am an artist. Okay, feels good to start strong. What you'll need for this lesson is any type of colored paper, whether it be newspaper, magazines, scrap paper, any kind of paper that you have, a little bit of tape, and a scissors. And that should get us all the way completed with our project. If you want to add kind of a clear coat at the end to make your project really sturdy, you can add something called Mod Podge if you would like to kind of put a coat on at the end, but that's a little bit more optional if you happen to have that material around. So we have a lot to do. Let's get started. To make our paper pottery, we're going to start with some strips. Now, typically this is done with similarly cut strips that are the same width as each other, and a paper cutter is really great to get them all the same, but just like me, you probably don't have a paper cutter at home. So you can either measure and then cut, or we're also going to do a folded technique for this one, which means that we're going to fold it to get our strips just as wide without having to cut a million little tiny strips. So I'm going to take my paper here, it's just 8.5 by 11 paper, and cut it in half so that I have a little bit of a wide sheet of paper, and then I'm going to fold that into more of an accordion fold. So I'm first going to just prepare by cutting a bunch of half sheets the long way, so there's a big long hot dog piece of paper, and then I'll show you how we're going to fold it. Now that we have a stack of some wider strips of paper, we're going to start with the center. Now, usually we're going to do an accordion fold where we fold it in half back and forth to make the strips that are going to go around the center of our paper bowl. But for the center, we're going to make our inside very, very tight so that we have a really great, strong start. So as best you can, I'm going to have you cut a strip for the inside, and we're just going to do a few strips first, made out of just skinny strips of paper. So I'm going to do, I think I could probably get 4 out of that. This last one I'm going to have an itty bitty skinny little one, so I'm going to just trim that. And again, since we're not using a paper cutter, it's going to be a little bit imperfect, but I think that's what's going to make this piece of artwork kind of special. So I'm going to set that to the side. Now for the strip, we want to start with our kind of thin paper a little bit at the beginning here. Tap it all up, and we're simply going to roll. So to begin, if you want to do a little bit of tape at the beginning just to really make sure that it stays, you can take a tiny piece of tape and just kind of lock it all together with a little bit of tape here at the beginning, like that. And then we're going to roll. Now when we roll, we want it to be as tight as possible because we're going to make the rest of our bowl of our pottery coming around the outside. So I'm going to just roll this on the inside here and start to make it super tight. Then Coach T always tells us to have our hands do kind of like a push and pull dance. So I'm gonna have my hand pull to the right, this one here as I roll, and then the other one pulls this strip tight so that I'm not going to have any air in between the strip as I roll. Okay, so I'm gonna keep rolling until I get this itty bitty little cone of paper. This is going to be the center of my newspaper pottery. So I'm holding this guy here, pushing and pulling to really make it as tight as possible. You can see I have like an itty bitty little hole in the inside, but that's okay. We're going to simply just get it as tight as we can. When you get to the end, you're going to do a little bit of tape to make sure that it stays. Let's see how I pull again and make sure it's super tight to make sure that it stays, and you'll get this kind of like little fanning of paper because as you roll, your paper starts to slide against itself, and that's going to make sure that it's going to kind of give you this like step approach, right? I'm going to pull that little guy off. It looks like I need one more piece of tape just to make sure it doesn't fly open. If I were to let go, obviously no, the whole thing would unravel, so I need to make sure that it stays. Sound effects are key. Okay, so I've got my center. Whoops. Miss K! Okay, I've got my center. That was exciting for a second. Now I'm going to take some paper and roll around the outside. So to do the next part, this is when we're going to use our accordion folding skills. So I'm going to take another sheet. I'm going to fold it in half so it's about the same width as my little puck that I've started here. So I'm going to fold, press tight, fold back the other way. So I've got that accordion fold again, and then come back. So it might give me about 5 pieces. Now, if you can really press this down with your hand or with the back of your tape roll or something that's gonna make it super flat, it's gonna be a little bit easier for you to roll, but it kind of looks like a small fan for a second. Then we're going to take this piece, get some tape ready, because we know that I have issues with trying to put the tape on at the end when I'm trying to hold everything tight. So get a few pieces of tape ready. And once you wrap this one around, then we're going to tape it at the end. So hold here, and you can even tape it here if you'd like to, just to kind of get it started so you don't need to worry about hanging on to it. Then tape here, whoop, stick, and then roll. Now you can hold it in your hand, but since this is a little bit thicker, I'm going to try just rolling it on the table and see if that will help to get my paper pottery sort of started and make sure I don't have too many lumps and bumps. So holding it tight. Really pull this side. It's kind of like a tug of war between your hand and the paper to really make sure that you are filling out your space. So with just one of those thicker strips of paper, I've already got a pretty wide kind of wiggly edge. This side is a little bit cleaner probably. A little bit wider piece of paper that I have around the outside. So you may have guessed it, we're gonna do that 1,000 more times. I could obviously keep making this way, way bigger, and then I would have a massive bowl, but just for the sake of time and for my thumb muscles, I'm going to show you how we can turn it into a bowl. So this is kind of like your paper puck. Now, typically this would probably have a little bit more even edges, but because I'm using hand cut paper and I'm doing that folding technique, it's not quite as perfect as if we were using paper that was cut by a paper cutter. So that's what makes this sort of like a magical different version inspired by Coach T. So we're going to just now turn it into an actual shape. So instead of it being flat like a puck, we're going to just gently press using your hand kind of like a cup to make sure it doesn't just pop right out and unravel, but we're going to press it to give it a little bit of shape. So I'm going to open mine up to be a little bit more of kind of like a taller bowl. Maybe I'll hold my paper clips in here or hold some jewelry or something. So I'm going to just open this up a little bit, so now it's got a little bit more height to it. So you can see on the edges where it starts to have a few of those little staircase walls opening up, and we can even kind of clean this up with a little bit of a paper strip around the outside and just make it look a little bit more tidy. So I might actually even just cut a couple of these paper edges just to go around the very outside. And the last step that you can do is to add that kind of clear coat at the end. Now, you do not have to do this little edging if you don't want to. I just want to give it a nice clean edge. You can decorate your paper if you'd like to, but if you want to use some sort of Mod Podge at the end just to give it a nice clear coat so it's not going to keep unraveling or opening up, totally fine. But if you make a shape and you don't like it, just flatten it again and now try one more time. So if you make a huge bowl, this will be really fun because you can make it super, super wide or really kind of experiment with what kinds of shapes you can make. So I'm going to go back to that bowl shape that I had, something like that, and I'm going to attach these to the outside just with a little bit of tape rolls, or even some glue would work perfectly. And then you can use a thick brush and put a little bit of clear coat at the end. Even if you have something like glitter glue or something like that, I might put a little bit of that in there too, because when it dries it's going to be nice and hard. A little clear coat at the end is going to be the perfect finishing touch to your paper pottery. My bowl is still very sticky because I just put the glue on it and it's taking a little time to dry, but I wanted to show you what it looked like because I can't handle watching paint dry, so I'm just gonna show you right now. But I'm super excited once this is done and hard, I'll be able to hold some items on the inside, and I think it'd be really cool to make a huge one, especially if you have a lot of paper you are gonna recycle and wanted to just reuse and turn it into a piece of art. So our paper pottery turned out awesome. Thank you, Coach T, for the inspiration. We love learning new things. Now we're going to, of course, end with a little bit of mindful meditation to make us super strong and ready for the end of the day. So for this one, just like we spiraled around the outside of our paper pottery, we're going to do a spiral breath. So we're going to take our finger and draw in the air, make that spiral really, really big. And then on the breath out, the exhale, we're going to unwind that spiral and come back in. So we'll just do one big, deep spiral breath, okay? Get your shoulders relaxed, get your body ready, and we'll do our spiral breath. Here we go. Good. I tend to take my breath in really fast and then let it out really fast, but see if you can try it again and do it very slowly so that you really intentionally practice that breathing. Remember, my friends, you are amazing, you are strong, you are resilient, and I love you. We will see you next time.